Shalom and welcome to the 2017 Homeschool Family Conference, and this is the very last day of the conference. You're probably tired, your brain is overflowing with things you've learned all week. So as we get ready for Sabbath, as we're preparing our homes and our hearts, we're going to turn a corner. We're going to do some review of some of the main principles from the scriptures that we have learned. And in today's session, we're going to talk about how to keep education from going secular. We're going to try to look pretty much exclusively at the Word of God and what it has to say about this subject. But we're going to keep it short and sweet so that you can be thinking about these things as you enter the Sabbath this weekend and as you start to prepare your home and hearts. My name is Ann Elliott, and I am the creator and founder of HomeschoolingTorah.com. You know, if you want to keep education from going secular, I could tell you a lot of things. I could tell you to avoid this curriculum or avoid that curriculum, and there certainly are some curriculum that I think you should avoid. But I'm not going to name any names today. And I'm not going to tell you don't put your kids in public school, although I don't think you should. And I'm not going to tell you not to go to a certain church, although I think there are churches you should avoid. But basically, I'm going to tell you that it starts with you. Mom and Dad, it starts with you. If you don't want your kids' education to go secular, then it really doesn't have that much to do with them as much as it does with you. And so we're going to concentrate on you in this session. It says in Deuteronomy 6:5-7, a verse that we've said over and over again this week, "You shall love Yehovah your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength. And these words which I command you today shall be in your heart, and you shall teach them diligently to your children." You know, if you love Yehovah your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might, your strength, your money, your finances, your effort, everything that you have within you, you're going to be okay. But then it goes on to say that those words have to be on your heart. And again, we've been talking about this all week long, so this is just review. But I'm going to just give you some quick things that you should not do. I was shocked. I typed up the words, or I searched for the words "do not" in just the book of Deuteronomy alone, and there were so many things that we are not to do. I thought it was very helpful, and I'm just going to give you a couple of them today. First of all, don't do what is right in your own eyes. In Deuteronomy 12:8, it says, "You shall not at all do as we are doing here today, every man doing whatever is right in his own eyes." I think that we are very guilty of doing that in our time and culture, doing what is right in our own eyes. Each denomination does something that is right in its own eyes. Every school, every curriculum company, we're all trying to do what is right in our own eyes. And I think we're all very equally guilty of this. It is only when we get our eyes off of our own ideas and our own thoughts, our own humanistic philosophies, and we put them onto the Word of God, specifically onto His Torah, that we start to know what is the right path to follow. It says in Deuteronomy 4:2, "You shall not add to the word which I command you, nor take from it, that you may keep or guard the commandments of Yehovah your God, which I command you." If we want to guard His commands, the way we do that is to put a fence around them, and I don't mean by adding to them with a fence, and I don't mean by moving the fence in so that we have to do less. If we move that fence anywhere but exactly around the written Word of God, the written down Torah, if we start to add any of man's words to it, no matter how wonderful they sound, no matter how interesting, no matter how fulfilling, we're going to talk about why they're so fulfilling in just a second, then we are not going to be guarding His commands. We'll be doing what is right in our own eyes. It says in Deuteronomy 30, verses 11-14, "This commandment which I command you today is not too mysterious for you, nor is it far off." This is not too hard, okay? We sometimes think the Torah is too difficult. I can't do all of those things. I don't even understand it. But that's not what it says here. It says it's not too mysterious or too difficult. It is not off in heaven that you should say, "Who will ascend into heaven for us and bring it to us that we may hear it and do it?" It's just saying, if you would just send me a prophet, someone from heaven or a faraway place, God, if you would do that for me, I would keep your Torah. I just need someone to help me. And He says, no, you don't. It's not that hard for you. You don't need someone from faraway places to come and explain it to you. Nor is it beyond the sea that you should say, "Who will go over the sea for us and bring it to us that we may hear and do it?" But the word is very near you, in your mouth and in your heart, that you may do it. We don't have to do what's right in our own eyes, and we don't have to add to the commands by keeping extra traditions, and we don't have to take away from them and say, I can't do that. I can't avoid pork. It's too difficult. That's not for me today anyway. Or I can't keep the Sabbath. We have to work on that day. We have a job, so we'll lose our job, and how would we pay for things? Or we can't say, you know what, I can't keep the feast. I'm all alone. There's no one here with me, so I can't do it. Or you can't say, you know what, I can't wear tzitzit. I don't understand exactly how to make them, so I can't do it. And Yehovah says, nope, you're not off the hook. The word is very near you. It is in your heart and in your mouth that you may do it. And he says we're not off the hook. It's not hard. Even a child could do these things. In Deuteronomy 11:22, it says, carefully keep or guard all these commandments which I command you to do, to love Yehovah your God, to walk in all his ways, and to hold fast unto him. I think the definition of holding fast to him is not worshiping with our hands raised. It is not attending any kind of church service that gets our emotions going. No, to hold fast to him is to do his commands. It says in 1 John, if you love me, keep my commandments. That's the definition of loving God. I put a bunch of verses in your handout that go and say the same things, to carefully keep all these commandments. He says that you're going to have to be very careful about it. And I think that's one of the things that we've talked about over and over all through this whole week, about how easy it is to let things creep in. We have to be really intentional, really careful. We can't just get up in the morning and just kind of wing it. No, we have to lay out a plan, and we have to be careful to check that plan over and over and over again, just like we do for our children's homework. That's the same thing we have to do for our hearts, to make sure we are carefully guarding every one of his commands. Otherwise, we'll be doing what is right in our own eyes. And as soon as we do that, our children will also do what is right in their eyes. And believe me, the world's way of explanation of their science, their evolution, their psychology, their view of history, and their rewriting of history, according to scripture, their way of doing all of that sounds so good. They're going to have it on TV with high quality videos. Unlike this video, they're going to have fantastic high budgets so that everything looks incredible. And I want our stuff to look incredible, but we don't have all of those resources. But the world does, and the world is going to look very tempting. In fact, in point number 2, don't inquire after their gods. See, what happens is we start to look out and see how do they do things. I wonder what the Methodists do. I wonder what the Church of Christ does. I'm just naming names here. I wonder what that church over there does with their rainbow pole in front of their church. I wonder if they are more loving and accepting and affirming than my congregation is. I wonder what it's like to do that, or I wonder what it's like to do that over there. I wonder what it's like to be a Muslim. I wonder what it's like to be a Jew who denies Yeshua as the Messiah. I wonder what it's like. And we start to inquire. We start to watch YouTubes when no one's watching late at night. And the next thing we know, we're ensnared. It says, Deuteronomy 12, verse 30, take heed to yourself, be careful, pay close attention that you are not ensnared to follow them after they are destroyed. This means the nations. And that you do not inquire after their gods, their mighty ones. The word God means mighty one, Elohim. The mighty ones can be a lot of things, not just a pole or a god that's carved out of wood or stone or gold and silver. A lot of mighty things in our world that seem, the medical system is mighty, and we can put our trust in it. We can put our trust in psychology and that they can, solve our depression or solve our marriage problems. But when we do that, we're ensnared. When we say, how do these people serve their mighty ones? I also will do likewise. I like translating it mighty ones because it makes it more applicable to me today. It makes more sense. It says in Deuteronomy 5, 8 through 10, you shall not make for yourself a carved image, any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. That's pretty clear what things we're not to have images of. Really stinking clear. If we are very literal about that, that knocks a bunch of things out of our homes and our decorations. And it says, you shall not bow down to them nor serve them. Means bring them your offerings, bring them your gifts, bring them your might, your heart, as we were saying, your heart and your soul and your strength. Don't do that for them. For I, Yehovah your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children to the third and fourth generations of those who hate me, but showing mercy to thousands, to those who love me and keep my commandments. So if we don't want education to go secular, then stop seeking secular advice. It says, I don't have this one, it just came to my mind right now, but Psalm 1, blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the ungodly, nor stand in the way of sinners, nor sit in the seat of the scoffer. But his delight is in the Torah of Yehovah, and on his Torah he meditates day and night. So who are you sitting with? Who are you standing next to? Who are you walking with? And I think those are symbolic for the books that we read, the magazines that we look at, the websites that we visit, the television shows that we watch. All of the ways that we allow people to influence. Maybe it's the homeschool co-op that you're a part of. Maybe they are filled with people who do not walk after the Torah. It's really hard to find support groups of people who follow the Torah. And I'm not saying that you can't ever associate with them, but be really careful, because you're inquiring, how do they serve their gods? I don't think they're going to come up to you and say, oh, please join our co-op, because this year we're sick and tired of everything we've ever done, and we want you to bring all of the snacks this year, and all of those snacks should be clean according to the Bible. I highly doubt that. Or if you say, I'm really concerned about the literature that you're going to be teaching, I don't think they're going to go, oh, we are so sorry, we repent. I'm being a little sarcastic, but I've never seen that happen. It would be a lot better for you to take the initiative and start your own co-op where the Torah is upheld, and invite all of them. See if they'll come. I mean, if the shoe is on the other foot, see if they'll participate. I have a feeling it might not go so well. But see, this is what happens. We see how they do it, and we think that their methods are better, or that maybe our kids are missing something, or they're not going to have friends. And yet the scriptures say, don't go after the nations and say how they worship their mighty ones, or you will be ensnared. Number 3, don't love the world. In 1 John, and I'm sure you probably know these verses, do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, and there are 3 things, you should circle them on your handout, 3 things. Lust of the flesh, okay, circle that. Lust of the eyes, circle that. And the pride of life, circle that one. Those 3 things are not of the Father, but of the world. And the world is passing away, and the lust of it, but he who does the will of God abides forever. Do you believe those words? Do you want your children to pass away? Do you want them to abide forever, literally, to be able to enter the kingdom as pure and holy, set apart for him, a bride that is ready to do his will in his kingdom? Or are you going to be passing away under his judgment when he comes? Sometimes when we love the world, this has those 3 things. I'm going to come back to them. But the world is so enticing, and we don't realize that we're doing it. So one of the ways that we do that is to look over to another family's, their homeschooling, their household, and wish that we had what they had. Maybe homeschooling would be better if only my schoolroom was bigger. Maybe my homeschooling would be better if only my husband were home more, or home less often, or have a better job with more money, or maybe we could go on more field trips, or if only we had so many books on our bookshelves like they have. I'm saying things that I've felt before, so I'm not putting myself not in this category, because I've had the same temptation. It says in Deuteronomy 5:21, you shall not covet your neighbor's wife, you shall not covet your neighbor's house, his field, his servants, his male servant and his female servant, his appliances, his cool car, his ox, his donkey, or anything that is your neighbor's, including anything about their life. When we do that, we're lusting after, we're coveting. In Deuteronomy 17, we looked at this verse earlier yesterday, or maybe it was the day before, when we were talking about copy work. And it said, when you come to the land which Jehovah your God is giving it, and you want a king set up over you, he tells you, choose a king from among your brethren. Don't set a foreigner over you. That's why, because you're not to be coveting after the nations. But he shall not multiply horses for himself, nor cause the people to return to Egypt to multiply horses, or multiply wives for himself, lest his heart turn away, nor greatly multiply silver and gold for himself. See, he is not to look at all the nations and covet their palaces, covet their bank accounts, covet their transportation and their military might, but he's only to serve Yehovah. And I want you to see that it's very physical, tangible things that we can covet, and we don't even realize that we're coveting them. And sometimes we put them in front of our eyes all the time, tempting ourselves. And it just makes it worse for ourselves. So the websites we visit, I don't know about you, but I get ads in my Facebook feed that sound a curriculum, and I'm a curriculum writer. I probably can't buy that curriculum, but man, that looks good. I think it would solve all our problems. And I don't want you to look that way about homeschooling Torah either, because you don't need homeschooling Torah. You need the scriptures. And I'm hoping that we've given you the tools that you need this week to help you see that. I'm going to give you some examples of people who are lusting after the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. First of all, Adam and Eve, specifically Eve. When the woman saw that the tree was good for food, it was pleasant to the eyes, and it was a tree desirable to make one wise. Do you see the lust? Let's see, which one would be the lust of the flesh? I would say that it was good for food. It tasted really good. Lust of the eyes, that's easy. It's pleasant to the eyes. Pride of life, it was desirable to make her wise. I think she loved that. And she took of its fruit and ate and gave to her husband with her, and he ate. And from then on, education has been going secular, and it's completely messed up our world. And yet they fell in the same way that we fall every single day. Another example, and I think this is so cool. You might have heard me say this one before. Abraham and Lot. Let's talk about Lot for a second. Abraham and Lot were running out of space for their livestock, and there wasn't enough grass for all of them. They were multiplying greatly, and so they went up onto a high, plateau, and they looked out to see the land, and Lot and Abraham said, Lot, you can have first choice. Where do you want to go with your livestock? And Lot lifted up his eyes and saw all the plain of Jordan, that it was well watered everywhere. Now this was before Yehovah destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. It was like the garden of Yehovah. Remember Eve? Like the land of Egypt as you go toward Zoar. And Lot chose for himself all the plain of Jordan, and Lot journeyed east, and they separated from each other. And Abraham dwelt in the land of Canaan, and Lot dwelt in the cities of the plain, and pitched his tent, even as far as Sodom. But notice that they knew something about Sodom already. The men of Sodom were exceedingly wicked and sinful against Yehovah. So it started when he lifted up his eyes and saw how beautiful it was. Oh, it's a good place. It's as good as the Garden of Eden, as that's what he said, even though, of course, they knew that the men there were exceedingly wicked and sinful against Yehovah. In his eyes, it was as good as the garden. And so you can see that he was the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. And you notice he traveled east, and he dwelt in the plain, and he pitched his tent down by the cities, but it doesn't say he lived in the city, right? He just went that direction. But over time, in the next few chapters, as you go down 6 chapters later, the 2 angels came to Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting in the gate of Sodom. To sit in the gate doesn't mean literally he was sitting in the gate. There's walls. It means that he was sitting in a place of authority and leadership over the men of Sodom. He was a ruler. He was one of the council, the city hall. Only it was usually met out at the gates of the city where people could bring their grievances against one another. He was a judge. He was a man of great reputation. Everybody knew him. He was probably rich. And notice he had, well, of course he was rich. He was rich before he ever went there. I'm just thinking of that, all of his livestock that he had. So he had moved from pitching his tent out in the plains near Sodom to now being one of the most influential men in the city. And you can see how the progression happens. And I don't think he realized. Because as you go to that chapter and read about him, he seems like he felt he was innocent and he hadn't done anything wrong. Now, let's compare him to Abraham in Genesis 18. Yehovah said of Abraham, Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him. For I have known him, in order that he may command his children and his household after him, that they may keep or guard the way of Yehovah to do righteousness and justice, and that Yehovah may bring to Abraham what he has spoken to him. So there was a huge difference. Abraham guarded the commands, and one of the ways he guarded the commands is by guarding his family and not camping towards those wicked cities, not lifting up his eyes and desiring things that weren't his. The last point is that we should not fear. Don't fear. Don't fear anyone but Yehovah. In Deuteronomy 3:22 it says, you must not fear them, for Yehovah your God himself fights for you. And I don't have this verse on here, but in Isaiah 54 it says, Yehovah himself will teach your children, and great will be the peace of your children. He will fight for you, he will teach your children, and he will guard them himself, teaching them in a very peaceful way. That's a fantastic promise. But if you want to fear all of the people around you, what they think of you, your reputation, oh my goodness, I shouldn't homeschool because what will everyone think? I am so afraid my kids aren't going to turn out. I'm so afraid they're not going to learn what they should. I'm so afraid they won't get to go to college someday. I'm afraid they won't be able to get a job. What if they don't have a high school diploma? Oh my word, maybe they can't even get a driver's license. And this fear drives us. But instead we should fear Yehovah, because he says he will fight for us and he will teach our children. Now, one of the ways that we can fear is by comparing ourselves to everybody around us all the time. Paul talks about this in 2 Corinthians 10. He says, do you look at things according to the outward appearance? Man, here we go, back to the lust of the eyes again. He says, we dare not class ourselves or compare ourselves with those who commend themselves, with those who get on Facebook and brag about all the things they're doing in their homeschooling, and we think, oh my word, I'm a loser. That's how it feels, isn't it? But we're not supposed to compare ourselves with them. He says they measuring themselves by themselves and comparing themselves among themselves are not wise. That's such a foolish thing to do. Instead, compare everything that you do, your curriculum, the things you teach your children, your children's obedience and behavior. Compare everything to the Torah. Compare it to his words and fear him only. And as you do that, he himself will teach your children, and great will be their peace. There's a road to victory, or there's a road down to Sodom. You can take one or the other. I'm going to read from Matthew 12:29. I was specifically asked to put this verse in this video today, and where am I going to put it at? And then it just seemed to fit so beautifully right here. I'm excited. It says, how can one enter a strong man's house and plunder his goods unless he first binds the strong man, and then he will plunder his house? You know, how are you going to be able to, we talked earlier in another session about plundering the gods of Egypt. I think this was in the session on teaching literature and fine arts and music. And we said, you know, we can plunder. We can take the things of this world and turn them into tools, useful tools for our mighty one. But how do we do that unless we first bind the strong man? In other words, we have to bind Satan in our homes. We have to keep him from having influence over our families. It says, back to where Paul was saying in the same chapter about comparing ourselves, 2 Corinthians 10, he says, the weapons of our warfare are not carnal or fleshly or man-made, but they're mighty in God, the mighty and a mighty one, for pulling down strongholds, casting down arguments, and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God, bringing every thought into captivity to the obedience of Messiah. So see, it starts with you. It starts with bringing your thoughts into captivity, controlling what comes into your eyes, what comes into your senses, what comes into your heart, keeping a humble heart before him and guarding his commandments, saying, Father, I resolve today to do what you have said. It's almost Sabbath. Have you prepared? Do you have food made? You have some time if you don't run to the store and go buy something cheap and easy so that you can obey the command to rest when that sun goes down tonight. And you can rest for a full 24 hours and focus your attention on his word. And if possible, assemble with other people doing that. But if not, just as a family, just yourself, obey him. Obey his commands. Put all fear aside that says, I won't be able to get everything done. And do what he says. Is there a feast coming up? Sukkot? Obey him. Rest on the first day and the last day. Rest on the day of Yom Kippur. Rest on the day of Yom Teruah. Take the days off work, even if you lose the pay. Trust him. Don't fear anyone else. Obey his commands. Get the unclean food out. Love your neighbor as yourself. Learn to control your tongue. Wear tzitzit. You could go on, and maybe you should go through the book of Deuteronomy and find all the do nots and see what he does say to do. Reading the book of Deuteronomy is the very best thing. I cannot recommend it enough. We're actually right in the beginning of Deuteronomy in our Torah portions every week. So you could jump right in. You're only a few chapters behind. You could read them quickly. Read them with your family. Resolve today. Say, as for me and my house, we will serve Yehovah. We will not go the way of mankind. We will cast down imaginations and bring into captivity every thought to his obedience, to the obedience of Messiah. I hope that you have the courage to do that. If you do, please let me know. If you need some support, if you need someone to cry with, just send us an email. The contact form is at the top of our website, and I would love to hear from you. You can use that at any time. Many blessings on your home as you follow him as Abraham did, and you teach and train your children after you. Shabbat Shalom.